Good morning. It is Friday, March 15th, 2024. Turf Team Times makes its return. We got a soft opening to the season this year. We got a couple of people caught in meetings. It's spring break at OSU, so everybody's kind of distracted and maybe out of state or moving around a little bit. And so we are going to take it off with Dr. Dave Gardner, Dr. Xiaohui Wu, leading off. Couple of things to keep in mind. We will run this bi-weekly until Memorial Day, and then we go weekly through the heat of the season, so to speak. Compared to other years, I think we're somewhere about our normal time, maybe a little bit on the early side. It has been a warmer spring. For the most part, this state has not seen a harsh winter. There was one cold snap in early January, which may have left a slight mark on some grasses in the northern part of the state. But I think we've not got any real concerns about winter kill this year. Our colleagues further north might be dealing with some issues where they dropped somewhere about 45 to 50 degrees about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think there might be some crown hydration issues will appear. But I think for the most part, the state of Ohio has come through relatively unscathed. We were also on the dry side, so snow mold has not built up a huge amount of strength yet, and I've not noticed anything along the lines of red thread showing up either. So without further ado, Dr. Dave Gardner with the weed update.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thrilling and honor to have the opportunity to speak to you again this year. Let me go ahead and get started here. So this was my deck this morning, ornamental cabbages getting ready to flower. And that week that Ed was talking about that it got cold in January, I moved these pots into my garage. Otherwise, these stayed out all winter and they survived, which is kind of a weird thing. And that's because, well, it was really, really warm this winter, right? So the average temperature for the whole winter was 38 degrees compared to a normal of 32 degrees. It was actually the warmest winter of all time as measured at the Port Columbus Airport. Maybe another way of saying this is that if the average temperature in March is 41, our winter was more like March than it was like winter. And so I don't know, personally, I kind of enjoyed that, not having to shovel so much, but it has made it so that, things made it through the winter, not just my ornamental cabbages, but a lot of the winter annuals that germinated last fall. And so this is on campus. This was actually last week that I took this picture. And so the winter annuals are going. The wild onions and stuff are going. Actually, I saw hairy pittercress in bloom on lawns in my neighborhood. And the other species that we deal with, like chickweed and henbit and purple dead nettle, are not far behind. And so for those winter annual weeds, remember that even though we're having kind of a warm winter and a warm start to spring, that you're still going to want to use the ester formulations of herbicides to try to control any of those. You should get them before they flower and set seeds so that you can maybe reduce the population for next year. But the ground temperatures are still relatively cooler, which makes the amine formulations, even on a nice day, work not as well. So, ester formulations of herbicides to try to get rid of those winter annuals. You can also use defender herbicide, which is flurazulam. That actually works great on dandelion, white clover, chickweeds, and mustards. So like hairy bittercress is a mustard, for example. It can also suppress dandelion bloom if applied at the right timing, but that's a herbicide active ingredient that works really well in cooler weather, so something to consider. Now, when it comes to these wild onions and wild garlic, the alliums, remember that those are more closely related to things like daffodils, and the chemical industry is not trying hard to come up with herbicides to kill things like daffodils. So it's tricky to come up with a herbicide that will try to control weeds that look like this, right? What I can tell you, though, is that in turf grass, 2,4-D or sulfentrazone have some activity on those types of weeds. Now, if you see those in ornamental beds, remember 2,4-D isn't labeled for use in ornamental beds, so you'd want to use just sulfentrazone and only as a directed spray around the ornamentals. The sulfentrazone can't come into contact with them, but that's an option for the control of those. If you see these patches of savanna grasses like Bermuda grass and nimblewill, remember that while those are not particularly attractive right now, they're also not real responsive to attempting to control them because they're dormant. So glyphosate is going to be your best choice, but you're not going to want to try to control those patches until May, when soil temperatures are in the 70s and those grasses are starting to green up and grow actively again. Now, what about crabgrass? So this is the time of year that people are starting to turn their attention to putting out pre-emerge for crabgrass. And going back to that hole, it was a really warm winter and we've had a pretty warm start to March. If you look at GDD Tracker, note that there's a new web address for that. This is a free service from Michigan State that tracks several pests. But it puts us in the zone that they consider optimum for the timing for the application of pre-emergence herbicides. And so if you've been out putting out pre-emergence herbicides for crabgrass control, well, this is when GDD Tracker says that you should be doing so. Now, that said, if you look at the long-term forecast, you'll note that after today and tomorrow, the temperatures are supposed to cool off a little bit until about the first week of April. In fact, what I saw was that we're only supposed to have one high temperature that's above 55 between now and then. And so this warm start to the spring is going to kind of go on pause for a couple of weeks, which means that you have a couple of additional weeks to get out your crabgrass pre-emerge. There's no need to panic, okay? We generally tell people to look out for when this shrub is in bloom, that's when you should be applying pre-emerge to optimize your chances of getting good control for the whole season. And forsythia is just starting to bloom here in Columbus this week. So if it's prodiamine and all of your other pre-emergence herbicides, when forsythia is finishing bloom and when the 2-inch soil temperatures reach about 50 degrees, those are a couple of the indicators for when to make those applications. Now, this morning, the 2-inch soil temperature here in Columbus is 53. But like I said, it's supposed to cool off. So we're going to have a couple of weeks that everything kind of goes on pause. So there's still plenty of time to get this done. Dithiopyr, if it's a liquid formulation, since it has early post-emergence activity in the liquid form, I still recommend, April applications or up to 1 to 2 leaf stage, which, that's usually the first week of May. And the later you can put out the pre-emergence herbicide, the more likely it is that you're going to have effective control when crabgrass is finishing germinating in late June, early July. Sad, that is my, I don't want to say update because this is the first one of the year, but that's what I have to say for today.
Thank you, Dave. Now, I just was going through the OARDC weather station data for Worcester. And from the 4th until yesterday, the average 2-inch temperature for soils vacillated from a low of 42 to a high of 49.3. And so it's obviously starting to get there. But I haven't noticed any, and maybe someone will correct me, of course, I haven't noticed forsythia blooming up in the Cleveland area, or at least not in a way that's obvious to me.
I think you're usually about a week to 10 days behind us here in central Ohio. And crabgrass generally germinates when soil temperatures reach about 58 degrees. And so the whole idea of putting it down when the soil temperature reaches 50 is that gives you the couple of weeks to disperse the active ingredient through the activity of rainfall to, quote unquote, activate it.
Right. That improves it. All right. Thank you, Dr. Gardner. Dr. Wu.
Good morning, everyone. Just like Dr. Gardner mentioned, it has been pretty warm winter, and also the insects are getting active early in the season. One of the major pests we're facing in the shortcut turf right now is Anti-Bluegrass weevil. And you can say that this is the adult or the weevil. Usually the adults, they do not cause much damage, very minimal, just because they only chew on the grass blades, the tissues. And the overwinters adults, so they are getting out from the overwinter site at this time of the year. And so this weevil, they can cause a problem because okay, so here's the damage showing by this weevil that was taken last year in a golf course in Cincinnati, and in the middle picture showing the damage in early of the season around May to June, and then the second picture on the right side showing the damage late in the season about August. So we use forsythia as an indicator plant for the overwinter adult activities. And so usually we say when photosynthesis is in full bloom, that indicates the overwinter adults become active. But actually, this year, they are active quite early. And what I have learned that is right after the Valentine's Day, the weevils start to get active in the near Cincinnati area. And so in the late February, there have been weevils migrating from the overwintering side to the short cut grass. So in this week, the Forsythia in Cincinnati areas is in full bloom, and in Columbus area is being ranging from half to full bloom. So usually what we say that when Forsythia reaches half gold and half green, or eastern red bud is early bloom, that's the time about the adults at peak peak densities on the plant surface. So what we have been seeing so far is that we have been doing the P4 traps. This is my graduate student, Henry Rice, installed P4 traps. So in the P4 traps, we have seen that we can monitor weevil adult activities migrating from the overwintering side to the short mound grass. So on the cup here is showing the weevils what we first caught when we installed the first trap at the end of February, and then 2 days after that, and we got 15 ABW and also 2 bill bugs in the trap. So those are the Cincinnati area. And also they have been keep moving because of the spring temperature is up and down. And so when it's warm, they will migrate out. So they have been still keep moving, and we thought, so what according to our observations is that so in this week, even in Cincinnati area, from Tuesday to Thursday, in one of our P4 traps, we found about 150. So there's a lot of numbers. It means that there's still a move. And in Columbus areas, we also got good numbers. On Wednesday, about 4 hours after we put out after cleaning the traps, and within just 4 hours, we get about 34. So they are still on the move. And so what you can do self flashing on your short mound grass to check if the weevils are active, and also the numbers, what density you have, and also where you have these weevils. This method is pretty active for most surface active pests. And what we do is that you put 1 ounce of soap detergent, dish detergent mixed with 1 gallon of water, and pour 2 cups of 1 pint each into the 1 square feet area. So altogether, it's 2 pints. And you observe that for up to 15 to 20 minutes, and usually they should be up to service within the first 10 minutes. And you can do multiple samples in an area because they can vary from place to place, and also make sure that you water the soap off after doing this to avoid grass damage. So I'm doing a statewide survey on the ABW in Ohio. So if you're a golf course superintendent, I appreciate if you participate in this survey. And so that's about ABW movement. So I would say that I would expect that in the next 2 weeks, the weevils will reach the peak. So get ready to spray probably in the next 2 weeks. And also, if you find, so the soap flashing method can help you find out where the weevils are. So if you have only a few weevils per square feet, I would say put a hold on the spraying adulticides because the healthy grass can tolerate good numbers. And another thing I want to mention is the white grubs. Recently, I heard a rumor that saying that March is a good time, is the best time to spray white grubs. I would not trust it because at this time, it's not warm enough for the grubs to move very close to 7 feet, and the insecticides were not going to work to kill these grubs, especially they're very big size, difficult to kill. And the best time usually we should control these grubs is usually from mid-June to August, and for the next generation. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Okay, folks, we don't have our fabulous finishing screen with our various links to the areas you can find it. That will all appear in the next iteration. Like I said, this is our soft opening for the year. And we're kind of looking at that in response to the weather conditions. Cooling conditions and normal spring weather in Ohio means, of course, that it'll be stop-start probably for a while. But we will be back in 2 weeks' time. So with that, we'll say thank you, and we'll talk to you all soon.